You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. You want to talk about the legal fight? Donald Trump and the Trump organization, they are embroiled in one today. Indictments were unsealed today showing the CFO for the Trump organization, Allen Weisselberg, he indicted 15 counts, folks. He turned himself in handcuffs at the courtroom. He is charged with grand larceny. Grand larceny in connection with failing to pay taxes on $1.7 million on fringe benefits from the company. The charges detail an alleged tax scheme, a tax evasion conspiracy spanning more than a decade, representing the most serious threat yet to the Trump organization. There's also, joining us right now is attorney Charles Coleman. Charles, in this particular indictment, they talk about this unindicted co-conspirator number one. Don't name him, but I think we can guess who that is. You look through this. How significant is this for Donald Trump and his sons and daughter and everyone involved in the Trump organization?
Well, good evening, Roland. I think that before we start doing a dance of joy in terms of watching Donald Trump prepare for jail, we might want to pump the brakes on this. Prosecutors are reaching a little bit right now, and they're reaching because they want to try to put enough pressure on Weisselberg to see if they can get him to flip so that that unindicted co-conspirator can become an indicted co-conspirator. That, of course, being former President Donald Trump. Right now, they don't have enough, and that's exactly why he's not indicted, because Donald Trump has presumably put enough space between himself and the actual allegations here with a number of different defenses that he could allege around his actual criminal culpability or lack thereof in this instance. So I think it's important that viewers understand that as of right now, the idea of Donald Trump standing and facing his day in court and going to jail, at least as it relates to these current charges, is a long way off. Tish James is not done with her investigation, and it is possible that in the course of this prosecution that Weisselberg may flip and provide prosecutors with additional information. But if that does not happen, I don't necessarily know that we have hit the jackpot yet in terms of what sort of charges will be brought against Trump, if any at all.
It is a long way off, but the fact that they are indicting not just Weisselberg, but also the Trump organization shows that this was a pattern within the company. What it also does is it forces Trump and his folks to play defense because, he's always throughout the whole campaign in 2016 when Hillary Clinton was hitting them all. Oh, no, I didn't pay taxes because I'm smart. No, you didn't pay taxes because you also were cheating. And what it also does is because, again, there's a reason why he was fighting so hard not to have his taxes revealed. Now they have those. And so the opportunity to not just, because first of all, we're talking about right now a Manhattan DA investigation. You mentioned Letitia James, a state attorney general. You also have the possibility of a federal investigation. So all of those things could be operating at the same time because now you've opened Pandora's box.
That is true, but it's important to understand that even if he were to be convicted and charged in these instances, in most of those cases, as far as the tax evasion portion of it, they are likely talking about civil penalties. It would be a very high bar for us to get to a point where we're talking about putting Donald Trump in jail based off of what we know now, which is why prosecutors are so intent and gung-ho in terms of continuing those investigations and trying to get additional information. The big question at this point is, A, will Weisselberg flip? And B, if he flips, what additional information does he have that they will be able to bring more severe charges? Consider this, Roland, and it does matter. It does worth mentioning. The IRS, this is a tax case, a tax fraud case. The IRS has yet to file charges in this case. That's actually very, very telling. I'm not saying that they don't have a case. They absolutely do. But in terms of putting someone behind bars who isn't already named in this indictment, they've got a ways to go, and they're going to need additional information. Now, in terms of Trump and his circle and his circle of loyalty, we saw what happened with Michael Flynn. We saw what happened with Roger Stone. We saw what happened with Michael Cohen. We know that Donald Trump will not hesitate to throw Weisselberg under the bus. The question is, will Weisselberg smarten up before Donald Trump decides to oust him from his inner circle of trust?
As I see, panelists, questions. I'll start with Greg Carr. Greg, your question for Mr. Coleman.
No, listen, brother. As I was listening there and scribbling some notes, I really don't have a question. You have laid out what is before Trump. The question I would ask would be about the case that the court's refusal to go down the path Letitia James and them wanted to go down to a few days ago. As this works its way through the court, do you think ultimately you're going to see the type of I don't know, political satisfaction in terms of bagging Trump, his sons, daughter, the family, that is spurring the kind of giddiness that we see on the face of our brother Roland Martin, and I think we're all sharing at this point? Are we going to get satisfaction from this ultimately?
Right. well, first,
hold up. And listen, anything that brings Donald Trump pain brings me satisfaction.
Brother, I see you laughing. I'm with you. I'm just like
anything. Anything that causes him to spend money. Anything that pisses him off, I'm down with it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, first, Dr. Carr, I must say that's the Howard University in me. So that's what you recognize in terms of what came out. That's what that is.
Appreciate it.
What I will say, brother, is part of what has happened, and to be honest with you, the same sense of anticlimactic feel that we were talking about in the previous discussion about Bill Cosby is actually similar in this way, because this is a byproduct of what happens when you inject the political system with the criminal justice system at an inordinate rate. And I can explain the parallel if need be, but as it relates to Trump, part of the issue is that Tish James, who is another Howard University graduate, near and dear friend, as well as Cy Vance, both campaigned in part around their zeal in terms of going after Donald Trump. And so now they're in a position where, despite the fact that they are outstanding public servants, they have to deliver on this promise. And there's going to be a huge chasm between where Donald Trump is and their ability to get to him without information or support from someone from the inside. And that's where we are right now. And so the question that you posed is, essentially, if someone from the Trump organization goes to jail and his name or her name is not Donald Trump, is that going to be enough to satiate the bloodlust that the public has developed in terms of wanting him to be held accountable for what it is that he has done? My answer is probably not. And the reason I say that is we've seen people go to jail from Trump's camp. And we are not going to be satisfied until, proverbially speaking, in that spades game, somebody throws down the big joker and we see Donald Trump in shackles. Yeah. And that, I don't know, is going to happen, despite the efforts of what some very talented prosecutors and investigators are currently undergoing in their jobs.
Thank you, brother. Yes, sir.
Reese, Amisha.
Hi, yes. What we saw in the Mueller investigation was there were these lower level people who were who flipped, right, who cut deals. And the thought process is that this was some master plan to get to Trump. And it never materialized. Basically, right. Everybody just ended up getting off scot-free. And then eventually Trump pardoned the people that actually did get convicted and served some sort of jail time, or in some cases like Roger Stone. He didn't have to serve much jail time at all. What is your read on this situation with the organization itself being indicted, as well as Allen Weisselberg? Does this look like a flipped strategy, or does this look like, to your point, they ran on accountability for Trump and the Trump organization? Is this an answer the mail, just get somebody and go home kind of strategy? What is your read on that?
I think it's a combination of both. I think the prosecutors absolutely feel like Weisselberg may be the weakest link and someone who can provide them with the biggest sort of doorway or entree to a bigger, sort of more substantive set of charges. And that's what they're trying to do. If they can't get that, and if they can't convince him to flip, then putting him in jail may be the thing that they offer to the public to say, we indicted the Trump organization. And then what they'll do is essentially blame the system if, in fact, they can't either secure a conviction or go deeper in terms of actually securing an indictment and charges and a conviction against Donald Trump himself. What I'll say about all of that is there is a possibility that Weisselberg may flip. And what I mean by that is Michael Cohen has talked recently about the fact that Donald Trump does not have a problem throwing people who have been loyal to him and his organization under the bus. If Weisselberg is smart, he will hear that and see the writing on the wall. This is someone who is facing anywhere between 5 to 15 years if he were to be convicted and there was going to be jail time attached. Again, a lot of that is not guaranteed. I think the conviction is probably a smarter bet than the actual jail time. Nevertheless, having said that, Weisselberg is not a young man. So the question is, are you willing to risk spending a potential good chunk of the life you have left behind bars for someone who otherwise might throw you under the bus? Because of those questions, I am not convinced that Weisselberg will remain as loyal as Donald Trump needs him to be. The bigger issue is, what does he have to offer that will ultimately stick to the former president?
Ain't nowhere in the hell, Misha, I'm going to jail for his punk ass. Go ahead.
And I wouldn't either. But I do think that there's something to be said about the people who Donald Trump chose to be in the executive level of the Trump organization. These are people who are high-level loyalists, people who have been loyalists for over 4 decades, people who he has entrusted so much of shady behavior to. We know that Donald Trump does not believe in a paper trail. He's not sending things in emails. He's not doing things over text communications. We know that he is involved in some really shady dealings. But with that being said, the majority of the hammer, if it's going to fall, it's going to fall on these executives whose names the general public could care less about and doesn't really know. So I think that aside from there being damage to the image of Donald Trump and his reputation when it comes to these businesses, and even that is not going to hurt him in terms of his base. His base could care less. And he's already going around the country talking about how much of essentially this is a witch hunt and another extension of the Mueller investigation, if you will. How do you think that this plays into, and I know you're trying to separate the politics from the actual legal side of this, how does this play in for those who are ultimately, in my view, going to be disappointed when Trump, Ivanka, Eric, and DJT Jr. eventually get off?
That's a great question. I think what may happen is that prosecutors will have to assess where their cases are and start to level set around expectations among the public. You know, one of the things that is easy to do, and I think part of what may have happened in the Cosby case, I know I made an analogy before, is that when you're coming into office as a prosecutor, as a law enforcement official, you're making promises without information, quite frankly, especially around investigations that precede you. So what I mean by that is, in the case of the Montgomery County prosecutor in Cosby's case, and in this case, you have law enforcement officials, prosecutors, attorney generals, DAs, who are looking at the public landscape, but don't necessarily have information on the inside or from the inside about what's available and what's not. And so you're making promises to the public about what it is that you may be able to deliver without fully knowing what's available to you, and obviously not being able to predict what's going to happen in the future. To counteract that, what politicians and elected officials are going to have to do, if they get to a point where they see we don't have enough information around Trump or enough in terms of being able to secure strong convictions around his higher level of employees or him himself, they may have to begin starting to level set in the public around what the expectation should be, and then trying to reframe the narrative about what justice looks like in something like this. And basically say, look, we got an indictment against the Trump organization. We got sanctions. This is a good thing. This is justice. This is moving the needle. This is accountability. To thwart off and stave off some of the public's criticisms, who might say, well, you promised us this, and this is why we voted for you, and you seem like you were confident going after him. What happened to all that? You know, as we say, keep that same energy. What happened to that energy that you had when you were running and asking for my vote? Now you haven't delivered. So I think what you will see is elected officials who will look to get in front of those narratives if they don't have enough substance to back up in terms of a grand jury indictment and ultimately a conviction.
Here, Attorney Charles Coleman, we shall appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
All right, Roland, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much. Back to that Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
You know, Steve got all these jobs, got all this money, got all these awards. You know, he talk about God and the Lord and his wife all the time. So he was over here talking, and his wife was there, and I knew it was his wife, so I walked up behind her and gave her a kiss on the cheek. The projects in Steve came out in about 10 seconds, because he was like, I'm hearing some kissing over here. Who the hell is kissing my wife?
Well, Roland, you leaned into and you was doing this just to aggravate me, and I heard it out my ear, and I went, okay, man, I don't know who this brother is, but Essence is about to be different. And I spun, and it was the ignorant Roland Martin. messing with me, but hey, man, you know how I feel about that girl. So it was quite interesting, and I had to apologize because the CEO of Essence was standing right there, and me and Roland almost turned the festival out. It would have been quite different.
Now, speaking of turn the festival out, we also are always on our pocket square game. Always.
Now, I got to give Roland credit. We always battling each other for the different looks. Pocket squares are something we kind of specialize in. We try to make it. This is topping the game right now. This I've never seen. I will be stealing this look. Soon as I find the people from out of this country that he bought this stuff from, and I get a proper email, I'll be sending to China or wherever he bought Japan or Yugoslavia, wherever they made this, and I will be looking. That is hot. I got to give it to you. That's the best pocket square I've ever seen.
Now, last piece. Steve is a big golfer. I'm a big golfer. So when we gonna have this golfing brothers thing?
See, Roland, you're trying to talk me into something that you've been doing a lot longer than I. See, you've been playing golf since college.
I took it as my PE at Texas A&M in '87.
See, right there, I picked up golf after Tiger won the Masters. And then I bought a set of clubs and played with a custom set of clubs for 5 years without a lesson. I can't tell you the bad stuff I've ingrained into this swing. I just now started going over the top. I just cut that out. Okay. So, and I'm playing good though. I'm playing good for me. Well, what's your best score?
77.
That'll never happen here.
Well, Rodney Green is working with him. He's our good friend as well. But
77. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm taking a full page ad out in the USA Today.
All right, folks, don't forget this Friday, the virtual festival, Essence Fest Live Loud Virtual Festival begins this Friday. You can go to essencestudio.com, essence.com. The virtual festival will take place Friday through Sunday, and then, of course, it takes place again next weekend, July 2nd through the 4th. On Monday, we're going to have a recap of the first weekend of the virtual festival. And then, of course, on July 5th, we're going to have a recap of the second weekend.